For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll be using a two-piece shower, which is exactly the same as the seamless ones, but it's got a joint, and we can actually show you how to put it together with the joint. When your shower arrives, you will have the guarantee on it and the install instructions on it. You also, if you've got a two-piece one, you'll notice you have the bolts in the packet there, so you can bolt it together. The shower comes already pre-drilled. You can see if it's a two-piece. Got the holes so you can bolt the top on. And then on the bottom there is a pad that keeps it flat on the floor, so you don't have to go shaping your floor or putting any materials on to get the right shape in the bottom. This is an easy clean trap made by Aquanite in New Zealand. It's a standard type trap which goes into most of the showers these days. It has some good features. It's in the floor, of course, before you put the shower in. It is able to be moved a bit if the pipe is not lined up by the joint. And you take the inner liner out. Next, unscrew the top. This part here goes in the top side of the shower, and you'll see there's an O-ring here, and this goes on the underside, which I'll show you now where it goes. As you can see, it can go in there. Personally, I like to put a bit of silicone around there. That goes up. The shower is actually installed, and this, as you're pushing the shower in, of course, this is down below, so it has to line up with the hole fairly close. You can allow for a bit of movement. Then on the other side, when you get it lined up and the shower's in position, you then screw the top inner in. When you're screwing the inner in, there's a little spanner mechanism that you can put in here and wind it down. And you wind the thing down. Remember, this is when the shower actually is installed. I'm just showing you how it works and what it looks like. You wind it down until it's nice and firm with a bit of silicone underneath this one as well. It just makes sure that you don't get any leaks. That's in. So you can see that's how it fits. This is what it looks like from the underside. And your pipe will be going on whatever angle is needed. You can also get the Roseware Showers drilled to take the standard 40mm fitting. This is still getting done in some of the showers, but it's not so frequent these days. Check to see that your walls are plumb, and if they are out a bit, you could then consider maybe putting a bit of packing in so it lines the shower up a little better. If you have a two-piece shower, the next step is to lift the top on, temporarily lift the top onto the bottom and just bolt it together temporarily so you can fit it. We will then take 3 of the bolts, which are used to glue the shower together, and put them one at each corner and one at the back to hold the unit like a seamless shower. Installing most showers at the stage, you will have to actually drill the hole for your fitting, for your plumbing, This is because some of the fittings protrude out, so when you're trying to mark around the outside of the shower, you can't get the shower hard in. In this case, we'll measure out from the wall 905, which is the width of the shower, and then measure back to the centre of where the fitting is, which is 200. Then, using the square, which we can on this occasion, we'll measure up from the floor a metre. The centre of that hole is up a metre. Measure up a metre and put a small mark on it. Then, with the square, put it up against the side like that so it's nice and square, and we know it's set at 200, so it'll be alright. Put a little mark at that corner there, and that's the centre of the hole where you're going to put the fitting through. Very important when you're doing this to put the mark on there, and before you drill it with a hole saw or a jigsaw, a number 2 blade will work quite well. But what you must do once you've actually marked it on there is go and check your measurements again here and back to the hole to make sure you are exactly in the right place and you haven't got it out. And you have to be very careful where if you are measuring from the back of the shower to where the hole is, to allow for the wall that stands away from there and get everything perfectly lined to get your measurements accurate if you're measuring this way. Definitely the easiest way, if you can, is to actually measure from the corner of the wall out to the width of the shower, which in this case is 905, and then measure back from the mark for the width of the shower back to where the hole is. Now the next stage we're coming to is quite important. We're going to pick up the shower and put the shower in place against the wall. And then we're going to mark round the outside of it. So just go and pick it up. Now we'll push the shower hard against the wall so it's nice and firm, tucked in as far as it can. It's all looking good. And then we'll proceed to mark around the outside of the shower. When the batten is nailed to the wall, this is, you won't see this, but this is what it's like. You've got the thickness of the shower here. The silicone goes there, and this is the batten that's nailed to the wall, and that creates a very good fastening point for the shower so it won't loosen. In this case, the laminate is just over 3 mils, or just 1, 2, yes, right on the, just over the 3 mils. So we'll actually put the batten in about 4 mils from the line that we've just marked. Checking all the way down to make sure there's no thick laminate or anything like that, where we have to maybe move the battens in a little bit further so it'll all fit nice and snugly. Allowing for the thickness of the laminate, and give say about a 2 mil gap, I've decided to do about a 5 mil mark just inside the line. We'll go in about 5 mils. That'll take up for any variation in the glass and leave about 2 mils for your silicone, and then you'll have your batten 5 mils in from the outside, which is about right for gluing it in place. This is a 2-piece shower, and like a seamless, it's got a joint here. It means that the batten that is coming up from the bottom will have to have clearance, and also we'll need some clearance on the top so we can actually lift the shower in without knocking all the silicone off the top edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure up from the bottom here, and it looks like, if we take the batten to around about 425. So on this side over here, put a mark at 425 or 425. So the batten from the bottom will come up to here. And then we will leave a gap of around about 100 mils. So we'll put a mark on here at 100 mils. Just there, above the other mark. And so the battens that we're putting in here will come down this line here and stop there, and then from there to the floor, allowing for where the joint of the shower is. Now you'll see I've put the top screw in, and I haven't taken it right to the top because the radius on the shower comes round a bit. If you take it right at the top, you will have to get a chisel and just take the arrow itself up. Line your batten up to the lines. And as I say, you can, if you want to, you can screw, you can nail in. You can see that it is well screwed in. And these are the original line for what we marked around the outside of the shower, and it's in about the 5 mils. So it's all ready to get the shower on. I'll put the rest of the battens around, and then we will look at fitting the shower. We are now going to move the shower into place. The battens are all fitted and put in place, so we're going to move the shower into place just to make sure there's nothing hanging the shower to stop it fitting against the wall properly. Now you can see just a little push. Make sure everything's all fitting nicely. Nothing holding the shower out, it's all fitting nicely against the wall. So it's now ready to fit. If you have by chance the batten's too far out, or it's hanging up so the wall is held out a bit, like that, and you can't get it in after you've got the silicone on, it's quite a major, because you've got to pull everything out and start again. That's why I suggest you pre-fit the shower before you put the silicone on. The next stage, if you have a two-piece shower, is to actually join the top and the bottom together. We'll put the silicone up to the front here and down roughly around where the holes go. I like to put a little bit round each of the holes, running right round across here, over those holes and back to here. That will give you a continuous bead right round and sealing the whole top to the bottom so you have no leaks. It is very important at this point here, where the door extrusion goes down, that you make sure the silicone is out, right out to the outside edge, so you don't finish up with the silicone in here, and then when you put your bead for the door, you've got a little gap. So that's the one place where you do need it, to the front at that portion there. The rest of the joint, it does not matter as long as you've got the bead running down the middle, as I said, and round where the holes, and a continuous bead, so there's no chance of having any leaks. The silicone to join this together must be an adhesive type because the shower is fiberglass. An adhesive type silicone glues to the base and glues to the top, and when it's bolted together and it's gone hard, is completely and utterly glued together and doesn't leak. Under no circumstances should you use an NG type silicone, which is a sealant type silicone that doesn't have the same adhesive properties as the AT or the 220 Fixel type silicones. Generally, it seems as though the silicones that have an adhesive ability, you'll see that they are cleaned up with either methylated spirits, kerosene or terps. We will now proceed to put the silicone around the joint, starting at the front here. Put a bit round the hole, as I said, I like to do that, and then making sure the silicone runs to the front, so we get a little bit coming out the front, and then run our bead along roughly the lines of the holes. Don't worry if it's not completely smooth, because what all you're doing is purely and simply putting it in there to squash it when we bolt it up tight. And the bolts are not there to actually hold the shower together once it's done. They're there purely and simply to act as a clamping device. First thing you do, once you've got to this stage, is take one of your bolts and push it through the top of the bottom of the shower in the front position. So it will hold the shower in line while you're getting the rest of the bolts in. Once you have got the two bolts in, you can then go and put the remainder of the bolts right round the shower. What you must do, it pays you to do, is to put as you put the bolts in before you tighten them up, is just check to see whether or not the shower top and the bottom are lining up nicely. This has been lined here, lined up nicely that way, it's lined up nicely that way. You can see the silicone oozing out the front here for when the extrusion for the door comes down. There will be no leakage there. Now the next stage is most important. You can see, if you look closely, there's silicone oozing out here, here, here and here, and of course at the front. What you do is take either kerosene, terps or methylated spirits, or they also have proprietary cleaners, and you clean the shower out like that. So you remove all the surplus silicone. You can see how I'm cleaning it. And the idea is that it looks as though it's got no silicone in it whatsoever when you're finished. It's all been cleaned out, and this must be done, of course, while it is still wet. That means you do that, 10, 12, 15 years later, that joint looks exactly the same as what you put it in now. There will be no mould in it. Clean it up and make it look nice, but remembering we don't want to clean too much out of it. Like that's most probably the ideal way. You can just see it a little bit, mainly most of it's on the outside of the shower anyhow. And that will allow, what I've done there, will allow when we put the silicone for the door down over the top of here, it will make contact with the silicone that we've joined it together and ensure that the shower doesn't leak at all. Now the shower has been joined together, if you have a two-piece, we're ready to put the silicone in to glue it to the wall. Then we use the silicone. I've actually made the nozzle slightly bigger than we had when you're joining the shower together, because we want a slightly thicker bead to allow for any inconsistencies. Start here, most probably be the best. Just run your silicone down. And as I said before, it's got to be an adhesive type silicone. Now silicone right around the edges of all the battens. So we're ready now to put the shower, but there's one other little thing I do when I'm putting a shower in. Take two battens, lay one down on the floor here and one on the floor there. So when you're pushing the shower into place, you're not knocking all the silicone on the top battens off. I've got it sitting on the battens, slide it into place like that, still sitting on the battens, remember, till it's snugly in place. It looks as though it's quite good there. And the next thing you do is remove this batten and then remove this one, and the shower just plonks down without knocking all the silicone off. Now you've got the shower into place, it's time to see how it lines up, just for a bit of final tweaking. In this case it looks as though it could move over a bit at the top, so it doesn't matter what you use to achieve. In this case what I'll do is just push it over to where it's supposed to be, which I can see with a black mark, and then just even tap it down. That'll hold that there quite okay. And I can check the other side as well. That's looking pretty good. Just to make sure it doesn't come out or anything like that, I'll put a little lock nail in there too. You can use, if you want to, you can use tape. You can use tape, you can put a little panel pin, just do a little hole, little panel pin in the top, do exactly the same thing. It's just to make sure it's sitting in where you want it and it's not pushing itself out or anything like that when you want to use it. The next thing I do is just do a little check with a straight edge, just to see whether or not the side is as straight as you can get it for when you're putting a door on. In this case it looks as though it can come out a little bit, because it's a two-piece one, it looks as though it can come out a little bit on the bottom here. Not much, just a little bit. So I'll just put a little bit of a, use a nail just to pack it out a little bit. So it brings the seat in the right place. That's enough to straighten it up nicely. Just to show you the different methods of controlling, this wall here has got a little bit of a bow. So what I'm going to do is put a piece of wood across the top of there like that, wind this in, and that's just holding the shower in place. If you screw it in too far, of course you can actually undo it a little bit, and so it gives you control to get your shower in exactly the right place you need it, to get it all nice and plumb. There we are, that's really good. And you can do the same with the other side. Another method you can use if you want to make sure the top stays in, and it works quite well sometimes, is purely and simply put a bit of packing tape or masking tape across the top. If it's holding into place, everything's good. If your bottom's, make sure your bottom's okay. Once again, if you want to, you can put a little nail just to hold it in place while it's actually setting. Leave the shower for 12 to 24 hours to let the silicone set, and then you'll be ready to put the door on. So that's how you install a Roseware shower. And in our next video, we'll show you how to put the door on the shower.